Spider-Man. Topically relevant because of the Magic the Gathering set. Spider-Man. What's up, gamers? I love Spider-Man. Who doesn't love Spider-Man? In the 2008, I don't know what year it is. In the comedy Knocked Up, Judd Apatow cast his wife, real-life wife, Leslie Mann, as a miserable, nagging shrew who hates all fun and everything. But even she has to admit,
I like Spider-Man.
and if you like the Spider-Man Magic the Gathering set or don't like it, I made a video all about fixing the biggest problem from the Spider-Man Magic the Gathering set over on my Magic channel, Tulok the Barbrarian. Sorry, got a little distracted there talking about a little low-level misogyny. I'm sure it won't happen again in this video.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
But Spider-Man is kind of a weird character. He does a lot of different stuff, and a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily in Dungeons and Dragons. So how do you go about putting your Spider-Man into Dungeons and Dragons? Well, don't worry, you're here with an expert. So let's start off, as we always do, with the stats. Oh God. Strength, that's gotta be really, really high. Spider-Man catches buses, okay? He can do a push-up that lifts a building up off of him. So strength, probably number one. What's the next stat? Dexterity. Okay, well, that should also be pretty high. Spider-Man's very nimble. He's very bendy. He can dodge things so quickly. He swings through the air with the greatest of ease, just like he's on the flying trapeze. You know what? Okay, strength number two, dexterity number one. Okay, but that's fine, because next we have Constitution, and Spider-Man's not frail at all. Like, at all. He's not, like, at all frail. The building that he does a push-up to lift lands on him first, and then he does a push-up, and he pushes the building off of him. You can even go into Constitution as a poison resistance or avoiding exhaustion, and Spider-Man is never tired. He's never tired. He works so hard all the time, and he gets burnt out, but he doesn't get tired because he's got a regenerative healing factor. It's not on the same level of Wolverine, but it's probably about Flash levels where it just kind of keeps him alive. So, okay, dexterity 1, strength 2, constitution also 2, also second highest. Okay, but that's it. He's a physical guy, but we're going to get into intelligence. Spider-Man's smart, y'all. Spider-Man's real smart. Spider-Man's so smart that he makes his own web shooters in high school. I guess maybe if you're going with the Raimi version, he doesn't have to do that. So the Raimi version is probably the most generous to us, since it takes away having to invent the web shooters. But he's also like a super gifted science kid, even in those movies. But inventing the web shooters is bananas. These have the tensile strength to hold up cars. He catches cars with these webs, so that's pretty strong. It's a completely non-lethal incapacitation tool that is so good. Shoots out super fast, and he makes it on the budget of a high schooler? Tony Stark built the first Iron Man suit in a cave with a box of scraps, but, you know, there was a missile there he had. He had a missile that he built. He built that missile, so he knew the parts that were in that missile, and then it's a complicated, probably, you know, multi-million-dollar missile he's got to work with. Peter Parker's in high school, and I don't think has a job when he's in high school. Even if you want to be like, Peter Parker isn't always in high school. Well, he is when he makes the web shooters, but whatever. Okay, let's make him an adult. He's a photographer for the Daily Bugle. Let's assume that's the New York Times. I looked it up on Glassdoor. The high end of salary for a New York Times photographer is $86,000 in today dollars in New York. And I'm sorry, he doesn't have a lot left over. New York is an incredibly expensive city to live in, and $86,000 might sound like a lot to you if you live in like the Midwest or something, but $86,000 as an annual salary in New York City is not a lot. Barely leaves you enough to like go to the movies every once in a while or like treat yourself to something fancy for dinner. You're living lean. Dude made web shooters, which are very complicated. So I think we got to go intelligence, probably tied for number one, up there with dexterity, and then constitution and strength also also really high up there. Okay, but now we're done, because the next stat is wisdom, which is, things like perception and insight. The spider sense makes him precognitive. He senses danger before it happens. He cannot be surprised unless you're doing the version of Venom that suppresses his spider sense. I guess we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, his perception is off the charts. He can kind of see the future. His insight, he can sense when Norman goes from Norman to Goblin. He senses it. He senses the flipped switch in Norman's head that turns him Goblin mode. That's how high his wisdom is. So wisdom is actually probably got to be the number one stat, tied with intelligence and dexterity. And then strength and constitution are just also very high, which means charisma's got to be down low. And that works. That works. I've been told multiple times Peter Parker has no charisma because he's a nerd. But nerds can be charismatic. Have you seen Iffy? We're not in the year 2000 anymore. We know nerds can be charismatic. And also, let's just look at Peter Parker's dating record. Mary Jane Watson, most popular girl in school. Gwen Stacy, Betsy Brandt, Black Cat. Carol Danvers is in Peter Parker's dating history in the comics. Now, maybe that's just because comics have gone on for a long time, but I don't think there is a person Peter has romantically pursued that he has not dated. And hey, I will clarify, persuasion isn't mind control. If your players are rolling a persuasion check to hit on someone in your game, if that person would not be attracted to the type of character your player is playing, even a nat 20 shouldn't make them go out with them, because persuasion isn't a mind control skill. But if they're amiable, and they would be interested in that person, a good high persuasion roll, you could be like, you've really impressed this person, spoken to them in a way that they enjoy, you've been funny, you've been charming, they'll go on a date with you. And then, he's also got the whole secret identity thing, which is deception, and he does it all the time, and he is pretty good at it. He's not good at it in the movies because it's inconvenient to ride around. You kind of have to make every other character a moron to do it. But in the comics, when he reveals himself in Civil War to be Peter Parker, that was a big deal because he hadn't gotten busted for his secret identity yet. And he takes pictures of Spider-Man for a living. He has a direct connection to his alter ego, and he's just a great liar. So yeah, I don't think we can say charisma's all that low. And that means we have 6 stats that are super high. And that's kind of rough. Now, some of you might be saying that he cannot be charismatic because he has all these problems in his life. Peter Parker has a bunch of problems in his life. I would say that those are all entirely Peter Parker's fault. Peter Parker has Parker luck. We all know about Parker luck. But as far as his relationships being strained because he's Spider-Man, that is not a lack of charisma. Peter Parker is just a terrible boyfriend and person to date. That's it. And now we're going to get back to misogyny, because I've seen a weird amount of hatred levied at Mary Jane Watson from the Raimi films. And not just because she is a blank slate who is dummy in love with Spider-Man and Peter Parker. In fact, the opposite. My issues with Mary Jane Watson in the Raimi-verse is that she doesn't have a lot to do. She kind of just pines for Spider-Man. She just yearns for Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Often I sit and yearn.
And that's it. And then she gets captured, and then Peter Parker has to save her. That happens in all 3 movies. All 3 movies, she is a damsel in distress at the finale. Maybe mix it up, Sam. Maybe mix it up, But no, that's all she can kind of do. And it is harder to write Mary Jane, I think, than writing a Lois Lane or an Iris West or a Vicky Vale, because those 3 are all reporters, and there's a reason for them to engage with their super-powered bows, right? But Mary Jane is an actress, and I don't know, unless Spider-Man's fighting the chameleon, there isn't really a reason for him to interact with an actress. So her role just kind of becomes being Spider-Man's girlfriend, and yet people are so mad at her, and I don't understand why. No, I do. It's misogyny. There is this concept that I think a lot of people have, and I want to address it here because it's the first step to incel town. And I want, if I can catch someone who's taken those first few steps to Incel Town and grab them and pull them back away from it, then I think this video is worth it, which, by the way, is the whole reason I'm making this video. Sorry, everyone. We'll do the Spider-Man D&D stuff in a second. I just had to talk about this for a second because Mary Jane is way too patient with Peter Parker, if anything, in the first 2 Spider-Man movies. In the 3rd Spider-Man movie, they're together. That's everything you wanted. But the idea that she would wait around for someone who neglects her all the time, who says, I will make a plan to hang out with you, we'll have plans, I'll come see your play, and then doesn't. Repeatedly. And when she asks him about it, he lies to her. He lies to her because he's Spider-Man, but she doesn't know he's Spider-Man. If you are trying to date someone and you think they seem interested in you and they seem great and they keep breaking plans with you, that sucks. And you should move on to try and date someone else. Maybe a handsome astronaut who's really nice to you and is home and there for you and goes to see your play and kisses you on the couch. That's a good boyfriend. Maybe you seek comfort in your other childhood friend, Harry Osborn, who you don't know is a crazy goblin person because he's nice and he wants to dance in the kitchen while making food with you. There's this idea that some men have that when they're watching a movie, they just get so enraptured in the protagonist that they forget that the other characters are not the protagonist. The same thing happens in like Breaking Bad with Skyler, where everyone's like, I hate Skyler. Why doesn't Skyler just want Walt to make meth and kill people? And it's like, because that's bad. And they're like, Skyler cheats on Walt. Walter kills people. That's a bigger issue. If you're married to someone and they cheat on you, that's hard. And you got to work through that. If they murder someone, you need to report them to the police. Cheating is rude. It's not illegal. Murder is worse. And Skyler is not worse than Walter White. And she is not a bad person or a bad character for being frustrated that her husband is making meth and killing people. And Mary Jane is not a bad person for wishing that her boyfriend would come see her play. Or, not just leave her stranded all the time. That would suck. And if you are seeing memes that are making you be mad at Mary Jane Watson, Skyler White, or Jenny from Forrest Gump. We're throwing Jenny from Forrest Gump in here. Did you watch the movie? She is a repeated victim of child abuse, and everything that happens in her life is just sort of her trying to find love. She doesn't push Forrest away because she doesn't like him because he's slow. She pushes him away because she feels like she doesn't deserve someone to love her because she hates herself. Jenny is not the villain of Forrest Gump, and she does not just call him up because she has AIDS and wants to settle for him. By the way, it's hepatitis. The screenwriters confirmed it's hepatitis. It's not AIDS. But regardless, Jenny is not the villain of Forrest Gump. If you find yourself seeing Jenny as the villain of Forrest Gump, or Rose is the villain from the Titanic, by the way, the water was too cold. That's why they didn't share. That's why they didn't share the driftwood, because you couldn't have shared the driftwood because the water was too cold. Water was freezing, and she would have frozen to death if she let Jack on there. And Jack decides to die. He makes a heroic sacrifice for her and says, I'll get on it in a second. And then, he knows he's not going to. That's just a romantic gesture because it's a romance movie. And she's not a bad person because she gets married to someone else later and then dies, and her heaven is Titanic, where she's, young and it was this big romantic weekend and, that's what she wants. She's not a bad person for throwing the heart of the ocean into the ocean. Okay, that's just a movie thing. It's just a movie thing. It's her symbolically saying, goodbye, I'm ready to move on with my life, or I guess move on into death. She's not the villain. None of these women are villains. These are just super niche memes that are trying to trick you into hating women. And I am trying to catch people before they go down that path because I have seen it happen on this channel so many times. And by so many times, I mean specifically 3 times. I mean Korra Avatar, Captain Marvel, and Rey Star Wars. I have never seen vitriol, other than the Ben 10 video, vitriol from my audience more than when I made Rey Star Wars, because Rey Star Wars is a Mary Sue who needs 20 in every stat, because we hate Mary Sues. And Mary Sue is definitely not just a sexist trope that we say for protagonist that's woman we don't enjoy. We hate it when characters are good at everything and when everyone likes them. Except we all love Spider-Man. In the Rey Star Wars video, which I think is a good video, by the way, I think it's a good fun build, I figured out that Rey Star Wars does not need 20 in every stat. Rey Star Wars really just needs intelligence for all the stuff she's good at. Fighting with a lightsaber, that's intelligence, because you do the Battlesmith Artificer that gives her a little droid buddy. You get a little BB-8, and that lets you make your magical attack weapon attacks with your intelligence. Boom. Using the Force, intelligence. Space wizards. Wizard. Done. Flying spaceships. There aren't spaceships in Dungeons & Dragons, but like I think intelligence could reasonably be used for flying spaceships good. The reason Rey Star Wars flies spaceships good in spaceship movie is because you're watching a spaceship movie and you want to watch people who fly spaceships. So you want to watch people who are good at flying spaceships. The reason she's good at a lightsaber is because, you know, you want to see people who are good at using lightsabers in the lightsaber movie. That's it. Her journey is the exact same as Luke's, with the exception that before she leaves on a spaceship and flies a spaceship around, we see her scavenging the remains of a bunch of spaceships and fixing stuff up as a weird hermit. So like you see her interact with ships and stuff before she gets on a ship. I guess Luke runs around on a speeder, which would be like if Top Gun, they were like, he knows how to fly a plane because he drove a car. And I think Rey Star Wars specifically, and you don't have to love Rey Star Wars. I'm not saying you have to love Rey Star Wars, but if you hear Rey Star Wars and you get angry, I think you've been duped into misogyny. I think you have been targeted for radicalization towards a hatred of women, and I think it's annoying, and it sucks, and it made Star Wars so crappy for so long. It ruined the 9th movie because Disney was like, sorry, all you meninists, all you incels, we'll make the movie you wanted. And then they did make the movie you wanted, and you said that one was still bad. And I agree, that movie was bad. So, Spider-Man is good at everything, and we still like him. Oh, but Spider-Man has problems. Rey doesn't have any problems. Rey doesn't have a problem. Everyone's getting murdered around her. All the Star Wars are blowing up. Again, it's the same arc that Luke goes through, except Finn spends time in a tube instead of the Luke equivalent, which is Rey, you know? Like, Spider-Man, who hates Spider-Man, by the way? The villains do. And the villains are all crazy. You know, Norman Osborn likes Spider-Man. Goblin doesn't like Spider-Man. Otto Octavius likes Spider-Man. The Arms don't like Spider-Man and make Otto go crazy and hate Spider-Man. Kirk Connors likes Spider-Man. The Lizard doesn't like Spider-Man and makes Kirk Connors go crazy and hate Spider-Man. All of these people who are in Peter Parker's life love Peter Parker. J. Jonah Jameson, goes out on a limb to help out Peter Parker. Everyone who is mean to Peter is not mean to Peter. They all like Peter. The crazy doesn't like Peter. Villains don't like Peter. Venom doesn't like Peter. Eddie Brock also doesn't like Peter, but he's a generational hater. We stand. So, in Dungeons & Dragons, what do you do about Spider-Man? Well, you just focus on what you really need. You need a lot of dexterity. You don't actually need a lot of wisdom. Unfortunately, for the wisdom thing, you kind of want the Foresight spell, which is a 9th level wizard spell, and we ain't getting to it. So just take the alert feat. That'll patch things up for your spidey sense, so you can feel like you have a spidey sense. You can't be surprised while you're awake. That's kind of close. Webs are really hard to do, at least like combat webs and web swinging. There isn't a web swinging spell. There is a web spell. Web, grab that. I think it's on the Warlock list. And Eldritch Blast can be spiced up to have a yoink effect. It can be spiced up to have a sticky on the ground effect that slows enemies too. So Eldritch Blasts end up becoming your webs. And I would go for some levels of Thief Rogue. That'll get you second story work, so you can run up walls and do your wall crawling, and you can jump over stuff well, which if you go 9 levels into Warlock, you can get Otherworldly Leap, so you have the jump spell at all times, tripling your jump distance, and yeah, that should help you jump around without flying, or you could just get Fly from the Warlock list and use that as your web swinging if you want. It's a tricky character to build, and there are a lot of things that you gotta do to kind of try and make it work. And it's really hard because Peter Parker is just kind of good at everything. And I always think of Peter Parker anytime anybody says, I hate this Mary Sue character, because I'm like, boy howdy, there is not a bigger Mary Sue than Peter Parker. Never trains, He never trains. He's bitten by a radioactive spider. Now he's perfect at everything. He does actually learn spider karate, I think, from Iron Fist later. But like that's such a specific issue. And if you're clutching at Peter Parker learned spider karate from Iron Fist, like in a 1998 run, I don't know, like we're getting a little, I think it was even in the 2000s. Spider-Man had been out for like 50 years before anyone taught him spider karate. Remember to check out the companion video to this on Tulok the Barbrarian, where I fix the biggest problem with the Spider-Man Magic the Gathering set. That one's actually a lot sillier than this one, which is weird because this looks like it's a silly normal video, and then I just try and stop people from being misogynist for the entire time, because Spider-Man wouldn't like that. But the other one's silly. I promise you the other one's silly. I won't rug pull you there. And join the Patreon if you want to support the channel. It's the best place to do it. You can let me know that you like when I get weird and ranty like this. Thanks to Kate for editing this video. I bet you did a great job. Bye-bye.